Joshua Smith here, and welcome to the GSD Mode podcast. Now get shit done and smash that subscribe button now. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast interview. Every single week, I interview top real estate professionals, top entrepreneurs, the strip, top badasses. They're out there dominating their space. They're people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves, for their families, as well as have a big impact on others. And today, you guys, got another epic rock star guest here on the podcast, a good friend of mine, Phil Duke, who I've personally been able to witness and watch his real estate career just continue to explode over the last several years. So like so many, Phil jumped into this business part-time. And it took him about 6 months to go from part-time to jumping into this real estate industry as a full-time real estate agent. And then his business, again, has just been on fire ever since. Within a few short years, he starts his real estate, starts his own brokerage, exits from production, and just continues to grow and explode. As of the time of this interview, this year, his real estate business is up over 300% and just continues to grow and is on fire. And he breaks down in this interview his journey, what he did, how he's created his success, how he's built his team, how he had success as an individual agent, team leader, now brokerage owner, what they're doing, what his agents are doing, how he's recruiting, all of that, and so much more. I know you guys are going to gain and learn so much from Phil in this podcast. Now, real quick, before we jump in, if you haven't already, make sure to snag my newest book, Dominate Your Real Estate Business, Top Tips from a Top Producer. It's a 100% free book, nothing being sold, no fluff. I don't fill it with a bunch of stories. I get right to the point. These are just top tips, strategies, and methods that I personally use throughout my 15-plus year-long real estate career that allowed me to become one of the top realtors and team leaders on the planet, covering everything from time management to mindset to goal setting to working your CRM to tracking to lead generation, scripts, objection handlers, you name it, I cover it inside this book. So make sure to go snag your 100% free copy right now. It's a digital copy, will be emailed to you within a minute. It's at joshuasmithfreebook.com. All right, you guys, let's jump on into this amazing podcast interview with my man, Phil Duke. All right, my man, Phil Duke, welcome to the GSD Mo podcast, my friend.
Man, I appreciate you having me. It's a huge honor to be on here with you today. You have provided me with so much value over the last 5 years. Could never repay you enough. So hopefully I can bring some value to some of the listeners today that are going to listen to this thing at some point.
Yeah, no, man, I appreciate the kind words and honored to have you on, man. I mean, you're a dude that just continues to crush it, man. You've done in this under 5-year time frame what most don't do in a 40-year career. And you've graduated from being a successful realtor to a team leader to now owning a very successful brokerage. And what impresses me about you, man, is you're a guy that figures out how to create success in business, but also in life. I mean, it's just so impressive on how you get all this done, right? I mean, you're a captain in the National Guard, you're, a leader in your local church, you're running this brokerage where, this year, I mean, you've grown your brokerage 300% year to date. On agent count. Plus, man, you're a world-class power lifter, and you find time to take care of your health and find time to spend with your family and also your hobbies that you do. And, it's just impressive how you get it all done, dude. So I'm really stoked to be able to pick your brain and for us to all learn from you. And, before we get into all the things that you're up to today, man, I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led them here in the first place. Rewind the clocks, man. I mean, how did this real estate journey begin for you?
Yeah, so right outside of high school, I live in Northport, Alabama, which is on the other side of the river from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. People don't know where that is. You've probably heard of the University of Alabama, and that's where the University of Alabama is, in Tuscaloosa. So grew up here. My family moved here when I was in the 4th grade, and so from 4th grade on, stayed here. And I did just good enough on the ACT to get a 2-year scholarship to the little community college we have here, Shelton State Community College. Some people call it Shelton High because it's basically like high school. But a lot of the teachers that teach at the University of Alabama or at Stillman College, which is another college here, they teach like part-time out there. And so I did just good enough on the ACT that I got a 2-year scholarship to go to Shelton State. My dad was a business major at the University of Alabama, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And one of the courses that they offered at the community college was the real estate course. And we went every Monday night from 6 to 9:30 or something like that. And you got college credit for it. It was a business elective. And at the end of it, I said, man, I'm going to take the state exam. This is kind of interesting. And like most people that get into it, you kind of think, hey, I've watched HGTV and this is going to be easy. And you find out pretty quick, man, there's more to this. But so I got licensed in 2006. I was the youngest real estate agent in my town at that time. I was 19 years old. 2006 was great. I think I sold 11 houses the first year. Back then, if you had a car or a job and $199 was like getting a car, you could go buy a house. And then in 2007, foreclosure started happening. And by 2008, the market really was dead. And as a 21-year-old guy who didn't really have a past client database, I said, man, I got to find something a little bit more, safe. So at that point, I joined the Army National Guard, went off to basic training. I was a intel analyst. So I went to the Army Intelligence School out in Fort Huachuca, Arizona. I came back here, started doing my 1 weekend a month, which I'm still doing today. I'm in my 13th year as a reservist in the National Guard. And I went back to school. I finished my degree at the university. Got a degree in healthcare management. I thought I wanted to work at the VA hospital. And after being out there for an internship, I was like, man, this is just way too political. And so I did a little bit of personal training. I did a little bit of some sales stuff. I worked for a pest control company before I hopped back in real estate in 2015. So I was the guy that came out and put on the suit and went under the houses and looked for termites and roaches and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought, man, if I worked as hard at real estate as I do at this job, man, I think I could crush it. And I started doing wood infestation reports for real estate agents and interacting with them and going and doing sales meetings for them, providing breakfast and hey, we got Phil here today. He's going to talk for 10 minutes about termites. And so it kind of gave me a little bit of a taste of freedom because the company I worked for then had never hired a full-time salesman. So I had a lot of freedom in my schedule. And in 2015, I decided, hey, I want to get back into real estate. I'm a little bit older now. I kind of knew what, it was going to take to become successful. I had been exposed to coaching before. The broker I'd worked with before was a Mike Ferry broker. So I've been exposed to scripts and prospecting, and really just as a 19, 20-year-old kid, didn't take it serious. And so I think knowing all that going into it really allowed me, kind of from a very beginning stages of getting back into it in 2015, I was able to kind of hit the ground running because I kind of already knew what to expect going into it. So I was part-time for 6 months. I jumped into it full-time, hired my first assistant that year. 27 transactions the first year, 59 the next. 2018 was voted the best agent in our area, by our Tuscaloosa News, and then started my own brokerage. And December of last year, December of 2019, was able to grow my team to the point that I'm no longer in production. And as you mentioned, we've gone from 10 agents to 34 agents since the 1st of January this year. So it's been a fun ride. We were talking before we kicked off. The great thing about this business is you can go as high as you want. You can stay at one point if you want to. And I really like not being stale, And so what the real estate business has provided for me is, man, every year or two, it's like, hey, I'm on to the next journey, and trying to figure out the next step of it. And having people like yourself and my mentor, Ryan Finch, and John Cheplack, and the Mike Ferry organization got so much value, out of going to events and being in coaching. And I would say that's probably been the biggest contributors is just following the path of those who have come before you, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And if we get into sharing a little bit of what we're doing right now, you'll find, and I know you're the same way, Josh, what we're doing every day is just not really groundbreaking. It's kind of boring and it's not sexy, and we're just consistent and we're committed to it. And, that's, how we're able to level up. So that's a kind of a longer version of the story, but that's how I got to where I'm at today.
Yeah, love it, man. So when you jump back in, I know for that first 6 months that you're part-time, and then transition to full-time, what did your experience, like, what did you do differently this time around? And not necessarily from like a lead gen standpoint, but, I don't know, from a higher level standpoint of how you approached your business and so forth. But what did you do differently this time versus when you jumped in 2006? where you end up exiting the industry that allowed you to really build up that momentum. Because man, I mean, you each year, I mean, essentially you've been doubling every single year, more so than that. What do you think the difference maker was this second time around for you?
Yeah. So I think when you get into real estate as a new agent, you really think it's going to be one way and it's not. And I really think a big thing for me was just realizing that, hey, if I want to build my business, I've got to do prospecting. I've got to do lead generation. I've got to go on appointments. Gonna have to work a little bit later. Like I remember the first night that because before then I was married. We had a baby on the way. At my previous job, I had never worked past, maybe 5:15 or so. And I remember the first night coming home after dark, and my wife was at the door and she was like crying, because she was like, "You're working late and all this time." And I was like, "Babe, it's going to be okay." And she's been my biggest supporter from day one. But I think just the biggest thing was just realizing that this is what it's going to take to be successful. I don't necessarily have to like it, but it's kind of a necessary evil. You got to go out there and recruit, do lead generation, go on appointments. You got to become an expert in the business. And so I think just knowing that going into it really helped me tremendously, because when you stop looking for that like secret pill that's going to get you to success, and you just figure out that, hey, this is what it's going to take. And if this is what it's going to take, the faster I master this, the faster I can get to that next level, whatever that next level is. So I really started getting intentional about my prospecting efforts. So I would get on Facebook Messenger and I would send messages to my Facebook friends, like I'd maybe send like 5 of them, like, "Hey, I was about to send you a list of all the houses that have sold in your area over the last 12 months. What's a good email address?" So I didn't ask them like, "Hey, can I send this?" Like, "I'm going to send it to you. I just need an email address." And so a few of those would respond. When I'd go to lunch, I'd follow up and I'd pull up the MLS and just send them a report of everything that's sold in their neighborhood in the last year. I would call for sell by owners. I did the mega open houses like what you and your agents have really come to perfect. I did a lot of that in the beginning. So I would go meet for sell by owners on my lunch break. When I would get off from my regular job on my way home, I'd change clothes and change vehicles, and I'd go run and go meet a for sale by owner and just do a quick preview of their house. So I just became very intentional about just talking to people and going on appointments. I had a CRM. I used a very basic CRM back then. The main reason I used it was because it was a 90-day free trial. But I used Realty Juggler, and it was very simple. It was only like $100 for a year after that. And it's a great CRM, for anybody who's listening that doesn't really have a lot of money to get started, and is not at a company that provides one. But really it was just, sticking to the basics. I kind of looked at my life, and other things I'd done when I got into powerlifting. One reason why I was a successful powerlifter was because the guy who got me into it was a world champion already. I mean, that's how I met him. He was big, buff guy, and I kind of was joking around with him of, "Hey, when we're going to get in the gym, let me show you a thing or two." And he was like, "Dude, if you join the gym, I'll show you." And so I kind of looked at my life and said, man, the things that I've done well at, I've had somebody guiding me along the way, whether it was a coach or a mentor, and I've had a plan, and I've just been consistent about it. And so that really was probably the big difference. When I was in it in '06, I was your stereotypical brand new agent. I didn't really have a schedule. I wasn't, as committed to lead generation and prospecting. So I think just really being more committed, knowing what it was going to take, and instead of trying to look for like a way around what it was going to take to become successful, just said, you know what, we're going to power through this. We're going to get good at prospecting. We're going to get good at doing listing appointments. We're going to get good at doing buyer consultations, and we'll figure out little things here and there along the way. But those were really kind of the basics that I felt like I really needed to get dialed in. And I think that's what allowed me to kind of level up as fast as what I did.
Yeah, love it, dude. So then, a question I get all the time from realtors that are starting part-time and looking to go full-time, which is, a lot of agents do that. And I think it's smart, right? It minimizes risk and, so forth. But it can be very difficult for people. And this is a question, again, I get here on the podcast all the time is like, at what point did you know it was safe or the right time, if you will, to go from part-time to full-time?
So I got in it in November of 2015 was when I got my license. I signed up for your boot camp. I think in December or January, kind of right off the get go. I mean, at that point, that was a big investment. I mean, that boot camp program was probably 2 or 3 months worth of our mortgage payment at the time, and we had a baby on the way. But my wife, has been my biggest supporter from day one. I was like, babe, I think if I'm going to do this and be successful, I got to find somebody who has done what I'm wanting to do. And I've been listening to this guy, Josh Smith. So I got into that. But for me, in March of that year, so about 4 months into it, I had 3 closings that month. And then in May of that year, so 2 months later, I had 4 closings that month. So I kind of just got to looking around, and I, still to this day, we live pretty frugal. I mean, I have team members who have bigger houses than me. I drive a truck that's 6 years old, a 2014 F-150. It's nothing flashy, so we always lived frugal. We didn't have car payments. Our house payment was probably our biggest bill that we had. And, my drill check for going to drill 1 week in a month pretty much could cover that. So it really was just like, hey, look at how well things have gone for these 2 big months that I've had. That's more than like 6 months of what I was making on my salary at my other job. And I could kind of see like, hey, if I just continue doing what I'm doing now, and now if I don't have this other full-time job, if I can do that all the time, do more appointments, more buyer consultations, more for sale by owner previews, more open houses, we should be able to double. And that's, basically what happened. So for me, it was, you got to be financially set. I think that's one thing that's holding a lot of people back, whether it's going from a part-time agent to a full-time agent, or from a full-time agent to a team leader. You get accustomed to living on that amount of income. And I would say, whatever level you're wanting to go to, minimizing expenses is like a huge thing. So at that time, I had a 2012 Nissan Versa that I paid like $4,500 for, a little car, but it was clean. And, we just lived very minimal, and we still, to this day, continue to live that way. So for me, it was more of like, hey, I can see the trajectory. I've got some closings under my belt. I'm doing this, I'm doing more as a part-time agent than what some agents do full-time. And that can be dangerous too, comparing yourself to the industry average, because the average is pretty low. But it really was just like believing in yourself, seeing the benefits of what you were doing, the fruits of your labor, and really just kind of believing that, hey, if I could just do this all day, think about how many more, transactions we could do.
Yeah,
So.
Love it, man. So then, so once you went full time, how long was it? What was that timeline before you started your team?
So I started. I went full time in May of 2016. In October of that year, I hired my first assistant. So I don't know if you would consider that a team or not. Some people would. She was an unlicensed assistant, which, my coach at that time that I had through the Mike Ferry organization recommended going with a licensed assistant. And I was thinking small, and I found out pretty quick there were some definite disadvantages to having an unlicensed assistant, just walkthroughs and being able to tend to closing and stuff like that. So I did that for about 8 or 9 months. And then after that, we parted ways, and I went with a licensed assistant who is still with me today. And I started my own brokerage in June of 2018. So from the time I went from part-time to full-time to open up my own brokerage was about 2 years. And then it was about 18 months from when I opened my brokerage until I exited from production.
Yeah.
So it has happened pretty fast, and you don't think of it that way when you're in the middle of it, but I mean it has happened pretty fast.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. And it was, I always say that it was the greatest day of my career when I exited from production. And not just because we're able to kick our feet up. No, we're still grinding, but I was able to give all my focus, energy, and attention to coaching and training my agents, and making sure that we have the best environment and so forth. But man, that path is difficult because you're having to balance your clients, and it's a little bit of red light, green light, and so forth. Right? I mean, what was that journey like from you, in that time frame of being able to exit from production?
Yeah, so, I had had my own brokerage for about 18 months at that time, and I had about 10 agents at that time. Probably five of them were part-time agents, and five of them were probably full-time. And so I kind of, just started kind of looking around at what we had, and most of these agents had been with me from the very beginning of their career, or maybe they had been with another company for a short amount of time before they came on with me. But I had a couple of agents who they were starting to level up as well. I mean, they went from part-time to full-time, or they went from a full-time agent who was just, selling a couple houses a year to now they're doing 20, 30 transactions. And I really just felt like, hey, if I really thought it'd probably take about 2 years to fully exit from production. But I have kind of a character flaw. Sometimes I jump into things a little bit too soon, but I kind of saw that, like, hey, there's an opportunity here. And instead of taking the next 6 months and slowly backing out of production, I just fully jumped out. So, but before that, about 9 months before that, I had given away all my buyer side transactions. So I had 3 agents in my office who were full-time, who were fully engaged, who really kind of, soaked up all the stuff in the office. And I know we've talked about this before. You have favorites in your office, like the ones who come to training, who do the things you tell them to do. Those are the ones that you really put a little bit more effort into. And that's just the reality of any organization. So I started giving them all my buyers. In the beginning, I would do the buyer consultation with them. I would sit down. So the buyer would be on one side table, me and this agent that worked for me would be on the other side. We would walk them through the buyer consultation. And then, Zach or Ashley or Rick would go out and do the showings. And then when they found the house, I would write the offer, because they were still kind of new at that point. They really needed my help for that. After doing that for a little while, then they got to the point where, hey, I'll still be on the buyer consultation with you, but I think you can write the offer now. If you need help, let me know. And so then we kind of just slowly did that. And then after a while, I was like, hey, I'm going to let you do the buyer consultation, do the showings, write the offer. I'm going to provide you transaction coordination to help you get it closed, but, and we'll stay in touch, as needed. But you pretty much got this by now. So that went really well. And, we're in a small town, we've got about 600 agents in our area. I can't go anywhere in town without running into somebody that I know or went to high school with or used to go to church with or know from the gym or whatever. And so when people start calling you, when they call me and they're like, hey, Phil, I want to buy a house. And you start telling them, well, hey, let me get Zach, to reach out to you. There's a little bit of fear there, because you've been the one doing it all. But it went so well, and those agents did such a good job that in December, I said, man, they did such a good job with the buyer side. They're starting to get to the point where just buyers probably isn't their thing anymore. They're really starting to do more listings. So the listings that I had at that point, I just totally handed those over to them. I think I've sold 2 houses so far this year, and it was like a family member and like a guy who's a really, really, really good friend of mine. Other than that, every listing appointment that has come in to me has gone to one of my team members. Every buyer consultation that I've set it up for one of my team members. So I think if you're going to jump out of production, you've got to have at least one, maybe 2 or 3 agents who you feel confident can handle your business and understand kind of your playbook of doing it. And I wish all of our agents would at that time were fully, confident and understood the systems and the trackers and all that. But they didn't, but we had a few that did. So I said, man, I've already got a couple good agents. This is going to be my way to get out of production. And so it was good for them too, because all of a sudden they had a bunch of listings that they didn't have like overnight. So I think you got to kind of do it, for me at least, it worked to kind of do it in stages. So I let go of the buyer sides first, and even that was a couple stages. And then once we proved that worked and those agents could handle that, we did the same thing on the listing side.
Yeah, man, I love that, dude. And I think something that you said earlier is also so important to just kind of, re-bring up, because I want to make sure that our listeners are really paying attention to this. But you talked earlier about how you keep your personal expenses so low, because so many, the more money that we make, the more they spend. And it gets to the point then where, because the reality is as you're passing those deals off, you're splitting the commission. You got to divvy it up. And you got to be in a financial position where you can sometimes take a step back and able to catapult forward. And a lot of people don't allow themselves to get in that position. Would you say that behind the scenes was kind of a key point to it, where it was like, okay, hey, look, I don't need to necessarily make as much money. I can start passing some of this stuff off because I know it'll accelerate to me having more success and making much more money in the future, right? But because my personal expenses are low, I'm able to take this risk.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. My wife hasn't worked in 5 years. When we had our first child, she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, so she does not work. So other than me getting a check from the Army for 1 weekend a month, which is not a whole lot, you have to be smart with that. And I would say, now that I'm out of production and we're looking at, partnering with agents, team leaders, broker owners in other cities to start new, locations, a lot of them are not in that position where they can afford, even for 6 months, to take a step back. So I would just say to the listeners listening, and I've been there too. I mean, my first big year I went to the Toyota dealership and I bought the 4-wheel drive crew cab truck that I always wanted, and a year later I was like, that was stupid. I went and, traded it in, got a little Toyota Camry and kept a beater, truck at the house for when I go hunting and for pulling a tractor and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that's one thing that I see as I've been talking with, people in other cities who are thinking about doing this. That is probably one of the number one things holding people back from making that jump, is that they've just gotten so accustomed to living off that income that they have as a listing agent or a buyer agent or both. And they really can't afford to take a setback for 6 months. So I would say, if you're thinking about doing that and hopping out of production, go ahead and start getting rid of anything you can. You can still get a pretty nice vehicle that's 5 or 6 years old, or you can get one that's 2 or 3 years old and pay cash for it. You can live in a house that's maybe, not the nicest one out of everybody in your office, so I would just say you got to be really intentional with that kind of stuff. And, as I've seen, if you can do that in 6 months, in 6 to 9 months, I've done, as far as, growth of my brokerage here, I've done more than I thought I'd do in 2 or 3 years. But I couldn't have done that if I was still out there listing houses and meeting inspectors to let them in and going to closings and all that kind of stuff. So, you've got to be in a position to live that way. And if you're thinking about making that move, go ahead and now start really evaluating your finances and figure out what you can go ahead and dump and get rid of, because that has been one of the keys to me being able to make that move. I wouldn't have done it as quick. Maybe could have still done it, but it wouldn't have been as fast because I would have been split in several different ways. But being able to just spend all my time, training agents, training our office admin staff as well. And then, going out and recruiting new people to bring in. Because of that, that's why we've seen the growth. No way I could have done that if I was still working listings like I was a year ago.
Yep. Love it, dude. When it comes to leadership, dude, because you're an amazing leader, and from the way that, because leadership has a lot of different components to it throughout our whole career, right? We start off, we got to lead ourselves. We've got to lead our buyer seller clients. And, now you're having to lead staff and agents and so forth. What would you say has been, kind of the most important things to becoming a great leader like you are today?
Well, I do think that one thing that helped me a lot was having the military experience. As an officer in the Army, you're responsible for everything. I'm in command of a unit right now. We've got I think 76 soldiers, and we've got several $1 million worth of equipment that has to be maintained. And you have meetings that you have to do, and you have to counsel people when they're not doing things that are by the standard. And I think the biggest thing as a leader is you got to figure out what your standard's going to be. You've got to set up the playbook and verify that it works. And I think you've got to put together simple action steps for the people who are following you to be successful themselves. Like, they need to know exactly what you're looking for from them. Like, you inspect what you expect, right? So you should be able to pull that up. It should be, specific. It should be measurable. It should be achievable. It should be realistic. So you've got to come up with goals. And so what we've tried to do with every position that we have is come up with like a 1-page job description of, hey, here's what we're looking for. Sure, there's subtasks to every single one of those things, but this is what we're grading you by. This is what we expect to see month to month. And when we do our little, monthly advisor meeting at the end of the month, that's the scorecard that we pull up. So I think there's a lot of things to leadership. It's not just saying, hey, here's what we're going to do, and I need you to do it. You got to motivate people. You got to remind them of, hey, we're doing it this way because remember such and such happened. And so you got to be in touch and in tune with what your people are doing. You got to talk to them regularly. I think one thing that's probably helped us more than anything, as far as, the agent side of things, is really simplifying it for them. I think in the beginning, when I started my brokerage, when I first hopped out of production, I think we were doing way too much training. And that might kind of go against what some people might be thinking, listening to this thing, but we had something on the calendar every single day. Anytime you were doing one of your, twice a month coaching calls, we would just have it on in the office. Hey, I was going to be watching it anyways. Hey, come by the office and bring your lunch and let's sit here and walk. And so I think we were spending so much time trying to get those agents who didn't have as much experience to have all the knowledge experience that I had from several years of being in transactions. And the reality of it was just overwhelming for them. So we really tried to simplify things. We give them an onboarding where we go through the systems. We give them a 14-day contract to close boot camp. We call it, it's 14 days of training. And it just exposes them to the basics of what they're going to see day in and day out. And then we just kind of hold their hand and stay in touch with them and monitor that. So I think there's a lot of things to leadership. But I think the biggest thing is you've got to get total clarity on what you want and what you want each leadership position or admin position in your organization to do. And you got to have a way to measure, are we on track to do this or not? And so those have been probably the biggest things for me. And in the beginning, you don't really know, like, if you're going to put down a number, like how many recruits are we going to, how many agents are we going to recruit to our organization this month? In the beginning, you don't really know what's a good number, but after trying it for a little bit, verifying it yourself, doing a little bit of it, I've handed that off to somebody else now. We've got a recruiter now in house, but for the first 7 or 8 months of this year, I was the one primarily doing it. So I got to kind of see the struggles and know what was a realistic number and how many dials to make and appointments and invitations to events and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of things that go into leadership. Really simplifying things for everybody in your organization seems to probably be the number one thing that's helped us, move as fast as what we have so far. So.
Yep. Couldn't agree more, man. Love it, dude. So then, for those that are watching, that are team leaders or broker owners or aspiring to be one of those in those roles, now that you've been on this recruiting journey and now recruiting at a pretty amazing pace, what are some of the things that you have found to be really effective for you when it comes to recruiting new talent and new agents? And when I say new, I mean meaning new to you, not necessarily new out of school, but like what's really working for you guys?
Yeah. So I think you regardless of what your splits are, regardless of what you provide to your agents, you as the team leader or the broker owner, you probably think that yours is the best deal for the agents in your area. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I would just say the biggest things for me when it really started clicking for us in recruiting was when we realized that most agents don't wake up today thinking about where they're going to transfer their license to. They're either happy where they're at or they're just kind of indifferent. And so if you just pick up the phone and just start dialing and, trying to set appointments to bring them in, you can set some appointments that way, but you're going to have a lot of them that you say, hey, yeah, I'll come in tomorrow. And then 10 minutes before the meeting, they'll cancel on you. And then they don't answer your phone calls anymore because they think, man, Phil's just calling to recruit me. So where it really started clicking for us is when we just tried to be the plan B brokerage for everybody in town. So, we would call, I got most of this stuff from John Cheplack, who I know has been a mentor of yours. And he's got a great system out there called Broker Team Profit Machine. If you've never recruited agents before, it's a great place to get started. But we would just simply, like, the first step is, do all those agents that you want in your area, do they know that you even want them? Do they know that you're looking to add agents? Because one of the things we had was, because I've been a top producer before, some of these agents that were selling 2 or 5 houses a year, they're like, you probably don't want somebody like me in your organization. I'm like, no, dude, like we definitely, want you. You're a character guy. And I think, with a little bit of coaching and mentorship, we could maybe get you to where you're doing 10 or 15 transactions. So I think step one is you got to like let every agent that you actually want and be clear on what you want and what you don't want. You got to let all those agents know that you want them. And so that can be just a simple phone call. Usually that's something like, hey, I just wanted to call and let you know today. I know you're happy. You got a good thing going over at Keller Williams right now. And looks like, things are going good for you this year. I just want to let you know if things change between you and your brokerage, we'd love to have you. We'd love to be your plan B brokerage. And then you just, kind of like let them talk. So I think that's the first step of it. I think another thing, 40% of our new agents that we've hired this year have been from agents that we've done deals with, cross sales. So we're also very intentional with once a week, our recruiter goes in and pulls up all of our pendings from the last 7 days and calls those agents at the other company who we're doing a co-op deal with just to see how things are going, see if there's anything we can do better, and ask them if it's okay for us to call them back after the deal closes to see how it went. And then after that deal closes, call that agent up. Hey, Alicia said you did a great job. She was very impressed with your level of professionalism. Felt like you would be, a good fit over here at our team. Would you like to come attend one of our Monday morning mastermind meetings and just, come to the office? We don't want to beg you to come over here. We don't want to beg agents to stay either. But if you like what you see and you want to talk more about being part of our team, great. If not, you'll still get some value out of being part of the meeting. So 40% of our agents that we've hired this year have been agents that we did a deal with, and they got to experience our transaction coordination. And they say things like, man, if I had that on every deal, man, my life would be easy. And then just bring them into the office, no pressure. I do it very similar to the way that you do it when you lead yours. I have a coaching call with my coach right after our Monday morning mastermind meeting. So I don't have time to stick around and throw a sales pitch at somebody. So come to our office from 9:30 to 10:45. And at 11 o'clock, I've got to be on a video chat with my coach. So I don't even have time to recruit you. But then a few days later, we'll call them and, very similar to the way that you do it. Hey, I didn't get to talk to you the other day in the office, but it was great having you. And a couple of our agents felt like you'd be a good fit for our organization. So would you be open-minded to talk about what it would look like to come be a part of our organization? So 40% have come from that. Another 40% have come from our existing agents. We make it a point. We were doing it every week. Now it's like every other week because we've got, more agents now. But at least once or twice a month, we're calling every agent that we have and just letting them know that, hey, we're here for you. Is there anything we can do to support you at a higher level? Is there anything going on with the deal you've got going on? Is there any hiccups you're seeing in the office? And hey, have you heard of anybody that might be thinking of making a move? Or have you worked with an agent recently that you think would be a good fit for our company? And then a lot of times, they'll say, no, I really can't think of one right now. But then next week you planted a seed in their mind. By next week, they hear about so-and-so was going to talk about, whatever. Hey, I'm going to go talk to so-and-so about joining, whatever brokerage. So, hey, Phil, I just heard that so-and-so was looking to make a move. You might want to reach out to them. So 40% of our recruits have come from just our agents finding out or referring people to us and just saying, hey, you need to go talk to Phil. You need to come see what we have at First Class. And then 20% have just been from cold calls or from open houses. So we go to open houses on Sundays intentionally to meet agents. So we don't recruit them while we're there. We just walk in, hey, it's good to meet you. And then, follow up with them, later that day or the next day, try to get them to just come attend one of our Monday morning masterminds. So that's been kind of the biggest thing to us, is really just being the plan B brokerage. I think if you're in a huge MLS area, we don't have that luxury here. We've only got about 600 agents. Only about half of them will actually sell something this year. We don't have the luxury of just being able to call 25 agents a day and just trying to set appointments. Like we'd be through that list in 10 days if we did 25 a day. So we've just tried to become the plan B brokerage, and we know you're happy where you're at right now. We don't want to sales pitch you to death, but we just want you to know we want you. And if things change, let us know. And now people we talked to in February and March are starting to turn into, First Class agents in, August, September, and hopefully in October.
Yeah, love it, man. And it's such an effective strategy because at the end of the day, man, I mean, people, when it comes to real estate agents, I look at recruiting real estate agents very similar to recruiting a FISBO, or getting a FISBO. It's like a for sale by owner. In their mind, they believe they can do just as good of a job as a real estate agent, if not a better of a job. And they have to go through a self-discovery process, and they have to experience pain. And on average, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks for them to be like, oh crap, man, maybe we do need a realtor. And so we're just reaching out, being a resource, develop that relationship. So once they get to that point where that pain exists, now they're thinking of us. And it's the same thing with the realtor, man. They might, things might be going good at their brokerage, but 90 days from now, right? They might be experiencing some pain, and you want them thinking of you, man. So it's so powerful, man. Then in regards to, I mean, I saw, I think, a post of yours, might have been in Chet Black's group. I can't remember where, but, I mean, you guys, I think at that time had like 58 deals pending or whatever. And, our listeners that are watching this, as soon as they release it, they'll know this, but just in case somebody's listening or watching this, year or 2 years, these live out there forever, all of this growth that you've experienced this year has been through this COVID-19 crisis, man. Right? Where a lot of people are struggling, man. You guys are freaking on fire and continuing to kick ass. So I think that's important to note too, because a lot of people are struggling, man. But then when it comes to things that you guys are doing and your agents are doing that are working really well right now, when it comes to getting buyers and sellers, like what are some of the, the top things and strategies that, whether you're doing as a team or your agents are doing that are really kicking ass for you?
Yeah. So, when I was in production myself, I never bought Zillow leads. I never bought Realtor.com leads. And that's not, kicking anybody that does. Certainly you can build a whole business off that. But man, I was just a prospector. I would get on the phone. I didn't really like it, but I got good at it, after a while. And so, we have this question all the time. I had an agent this morning in my office that was, hey, been working some of these, we use KV Core as a CRM, been working some of these KV Core leads, and, they're not ready to buy right now. I think the biggest sources that we have, and we do spend a little bit now on some Facebook advertising and some stuff like that, but we are very intentional with getting our agents to reach out to their sphere of influence in a way that does not come across as pushy or salesy. So we recommend that all of our agents just simply reach out to their sphere of influence, especially when they first join us, and just let them know, hey, I just transferred to a new company, First Class Real Estate. It's one of the fastest growing companies in our area. We're really excited about it. And, I know I hadn't done a good job of staying in touch with you like I should have, but trying to, get a little bit better with that. Is there anything in the world I can do for you guys today? And most of the time they're going to say no. And, then you just kind of go into, well, is it okay if we stay in touch? I try to send out a weekly email newsletter, just a little bit about what's going on in the local real estate market. Not going to spam you, don't have time to spam you, but just a way for us to kind of stay in touch. So we're really big on getting our agents to build up an email database. We use drip campaigns in KV Core. Some of our agents are really committed to that, and they do a good job with that. But I would say most of them just don't like getting on the phone and hitting people up every 10 days, until they're ready to do something. So the weekly email newsletter is kind of a good thing for those that just kind of want to stay in touch, but I don't want to bother people. So that's been a big thing. Circle prospecting is another, great lead source. For sale by owner puts their sign in the yard, a bunch of agents are calling them. Like you said, they think they can do it themselves. But what we've kind of found over the years is about 1 out of 27 homeowners is going to move in the next 3 to 6 months. And if you can find that 1 out of 27 in the neighborhood, you can get in the door with them before any other agent is calling them, before any other agent is talking about commission and list price. And so a lot of times they'll be like, well, hey, we were just talking about that last night at the dinner table. Now you're calling me. So that's kind of been how I built the foundation of my business. I think a lot of times as agents, we spend a lot of time and money going after people that we don't know. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you got people who are already in your phone, who will probably pick up the phone and answer if you call, why not start there? There's so many barriers that are down. And if you could just get 10% of your cell phone contacts to do business with you. For most people, that's going to be a huge win. But I would just say, as a new agent coming into it, you've got to try all kind of things. I mean, that's what I did. I did open houses. I did circle prospecting. I called for sale by owners. I called my friends. I door knocked. I mean, I tried everything I could until I really tried to, kind of figured out what I was good at. And so for a lot of new agents, we don't know what they're good at because they hadn't tried more than one or two things. And without some data to look at, how many doors did you knock on? How many online leads have you actually called? How many of your friends did you call? Without having some numbers to track, you don't really know where you are. Like going back to the gym analogy, if somebody wanted me to write out a workout program and they wanted to squat 600 pounds in a competition, we need to know where they're at today. So we could come up with like, hey, you need to be doing this percentage for this number of reps this week. And then next week, add a little bit more weight and go, so I think for a lot of agents, we don't really know what's working and what's not working because they haven't done it consistently enough and they haven't tracked the numbers. And so that's usually where we start off with new agents. It's almost never a lead problem. And there was a lot of pressure. I put a lot of pressure on myself in the beginning of, hey, if I'm gonna have 10 or 20 or 30 people, then we got to be generating a bunch of leads for them. And we've kind of found that's a little bit counterproductive because then they start complaining about the leads. Hey, so-and-so got a better lead than I did. These leads that I got just hadn't done anything. It's almost never a lead problem for agents. It's usually a tracking. We don't really know what you're doing good at and not doing good at until you get 30, 60, 90 days of consistent tracking what you're doing, what's working and what's not working for you. So I would say that's probably the biggest things that we do. Another big thing that we harp on is for our agents to be active on social media. So we believe in doing a motivational post first thing in the morning from 6:30 to 7:30 a.m. We do a real estate post, whether that's like a single property squeeze page or, you don't want to be salesy. You don't want to say, here's my business card and, I want to remind you that I'm in business or call me for all your real estate needs. We want them to see activity. Hey, our company just listed this house. A few days later, our company just got this one pending. We just closed this one. This is how many we sold this month. This is how many we listed this month. So we want them to remind their Facebook friends that, hey, I'm in the business. And if I can pull up your Facebook page and can't really see that you're in real estate, you're missing a huge opportunity there. So we do one real estate post a day, usually between 11 and 11:30ish, and then do something, fun, hobby, family related kind of later in the afternoon, just to kind of become engaging. Facebook wants engagement. They want you to get on Facebook and never leave it. So if you're posting content that people are liking and sharing and commenting, you're going to get more of your stuff shown to more of your Facebook friends. So those are probably the biggest things. We probably have 50% of our closings right now are coming from people just responding to Facebook, and it's not that we're running a whole bunch of ads. I mean, I think I'm spending $250 a month right now on Facebook ads for a team of 34 people. But the agents are getting all that organic stuff from just posting consistently on social media and just reminding their friends that they're there. I'm in the business and our company and our clients are getting results. So those are probably the biggest things that we try to get all new agents to do. And some of them crush it with one thing over another, but you don't really know what's going to work for you or not until you try it and you track those numbers. So that's probably the biggest thing. If you're a team leader or thinking about being a team leader, don't put too much pressure on yourself to try to just spend a ton of money on leads, because if you spend a ton of money on leads and they're not tracking their numbers and they're not, comfortable on the phones, you're kind of just throwing money down the drain. So we really don't spend a whole lot of money on leads. We try to get them to generate their own stuff.
Yep, love it.
And they get a higher split on stuff they generate themselves anyway. So that's a better deal for them, and if we can teach them to do that, then they won't be dependent on us forever. And that's ultimately what we want. We don't want a bunch of agents that are 100% dependent on us giving them out buyers and sellers, because that's not realistic or sustainable.
Yep. Yeah. You can give them a fish or you can teach them how to fish.
That's right. And hey, in the beginning, you might have to give them a fish or two to get them started, but that cannot be your long-term plan. You got to teach them to fish.
Yep. Couldn't agree more, man. So then, when it comes to you personally, man, to be able to experience the growth that you've had, and you've talked a lot about consistency, doing the consistent tasks every single, that it takes to create the success. And I got to imagine, dude, when it comes to your time management and planning and scheduling, that's something that you're very intentional with. And I know it can change, right? Like I get asked all the time, what does your day look like? I'm like, well, it's so different today than it was when I was an individual agent. However, my intentionality to my daily planning process, has always been consistent, right? Even though my hats kind of changed over the years. But I'm curious because again, dude, I mean, you're a guy that, we talked about in the beginning that not only do you have this real estate company, but you've got, your military career and then you're a leader in your local church and you got all this stuff going plus a family. And, can you walk us through a little bit of what your kind of planning process looks like in your scheduling and how you keep all of this stuff together?
Yeah, so very similar to if you're going to be a top listing agent. Most of those guys and gals, they get up early, right? They get to the office probably earlier than most of the other agents in the office. They do their prospecting early, before distractions can come in, and then their afternoons is doing appointments. Mine today as a team leader and broker owner is very similar to that. Now, some mornings I don't get to the gym, and we have a about to be 10-month-old, and my almost 5-year-old, he's gone to bed at like 9 or 9:30 pretty much since he was born. This new one, we're lucky to get him in bed before 11:30. And so instead of trying to fight that, and instead of me still going to bed at 10 and having my wife deal with him for another 2 hours by herself, I've just decided, hey, if I go to bed at midnight, I can still get up at 7. I can hit the gym before work, still get to the office by 8:30. And, most real estate agents are kind of rolling into the office about 9 or 10 anyway. So it's kind of worked out well for me. I don't know how many agents I would really get on the phone if I started calling them at 7:30 in the morning. I just know the way they roll in at my office, 9, 10, about the time they start getting rolling really. So to me, it really hadn't been that much different. I think I've had to go back and just get myself a little bit organized each night. So I've tried all kind of different things. I made some notes before we hopped on here, but I use the little notes app in my phone just to try to create like a to-do list before I go to bed at night, so that when I get out of the bed in the morning, I know exactly like these are the 3 or 4 things that I need to do today. But my mornings are still pretty similar to when I was listing houses. I call my existing agents just to check in with them, see what they're struggling with. Again, 40% of our new hires have been because our agents recommended that I reach out to somebody or that person reach out to me. So, I want to provide value to them. I don't want them to just put deals in our transaction management system and go to closings and turn in commission checks. And that's all we do. Like, I want to know what's going on with them and what they're struggling with. So I'll make it a point to call, a few of them every day. I make it a point to call a few agents that I know, that I'd like to have in my company and reach out to them. We really have, simplified our training calendar. Right now, we just do a Monday morning mastermind, which is like our big company-wide sales meeting that we record it every week. We post it in our Facebook group for those that can't attend, but we want everybody to be at that meeting that can. And then on Friday morning, I do a 9 a.m. Q&A call. Outside of that, really, to be honest with you, I get a little bit bored because we've got it so systematized right now. And I've delegated the recruiting side for the most part to a recruiter now. My office admin pretty much runs the office. And so really the only 2 things that I'm doing at this point is training agents, and, being the broker. And, there's a very real possibility within the next 6 months or so, if we keep growing the way we are, it'll be time to start handing that off. So, I get a little bit bored and, but I just spend that time, digging in with another agent, because of that. Now I have more time to sit one-on-one with an agent in the office that's struggling with something. I have time to kind of inspect what I'm expecting. So, I'll just pull up a report, and our Brokerman is what we use for our transaction management. I'll just pull up a report in Brokerman, and I'll just, my door faces where our office manager sits at our little reception area. I'll be like, Callan, this says we have, 58 transactions pending, but I'm seeing this, this, and this. What's going on with this? And so then it kind of spurs things to kind of get going. Or hey, I saw that, this was in Google Drive. I didn't really understand why that was in there. So they probably hate that I'm a little bit bored because that means I start finding things to do. But for me, it's just, become kind of systematic. Every week is almost the same. Mondays is our day to do trainings. So when we do our Monday morning mastermind, that's when I hop on with my coach, Ryan Finch. On Tuesdays, I'm lucky enough that the National Guard unit that I serve with, that I'm in command of right now, is here locally. So on Tuesday mornings, I go to that staff meeting. They have a full-time staff that works there throughout the week that handles things in between our monthly drill weekends and just admin stuff. And I'm fortunate enough that I've been able to go to almost every single one of them for over a year now that I've been, the company commander there. So my office staff here in the real estate office knows Tuesday morning, I'm probably not going to be rolling in here till 11 or 11:30. But those guys at the Armory also know, hey, if Captain Duke needs to come in and sign something, I need to have it ready Tuesday, because if not, I'm probably not going to see him until the next Tuesday. So I would just say, like, the biggest thing, if you got a time block, and you got to try to make it as systematic as you can. And you mentioned COVID. One of the best things that's happened during COVID is that all those restaurants shut down and they were drive-through only. So we don't have lenders and title companies wanting to take us out to lunch anymore. Started making lunch here at the office. I've got some sandwich bread and some peanut butter and some jelly and some Pringles, and that's what I'm gonna eat every day of the week, unless my wife happens to come by and bring me some Chick-fil-A or something. So it actually, I would say the better you do, whether you're an agent who's doing buyers or sellers, or you're a team leader who's growing, the better you do, actually, the easier it gets. And so, the more systemized you get, the more you delegate, the better playbook you've got, the better checklist you've got, the simpler you make it for those people working for you. It all just ends up getting simpler. And so, like you said, getting out of production has been one of the best things that ever happened to me. Not that I last year I had my biggest year I've ever had as a producer. But really, what really spurred me to do that was just really having a business that could run and grow without me. And we're not quite there yet, but we're a lot closer now than what we were on January 1st. So that's really what motivates me and drives me today is really just figuring out that next level. And I see people running businesses that, can basically run without them. Like, those are the kind of people that I'm studying now. It's really not so much about real estate and buyers and sellers. It's more about leadership and psychology and models and delegating. Those are the kind of things that I'm into, at this point in my real estate career.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I love to work, dude. So I don't plan on not being involved in working, but it's so nice to know that you can disappear for a year and your business will still be back, and probably grown when you return, right? It's so powerful to get to that point. And I'm curious, man, now with this journey with First Class, and, you mentioned Ryan Finch, your mentor and coach, and he's been was one of my first mentors in the real estate business as well. And he's become one of my closest friends. I just love the guy, man. And, I'm curious with this now with this new pivot and transition, for you, where do you see this going, man? Like, where do you see yourself in the next, 5 years, 10 years? I mean, do you plan on expanding beyond your area, out of state lines and so forth?
Yeah. So, about 6 months into the journey as a First Class franchise, I became an area representative through First Class. And basically what that allows me to do is to go out and sell franchises or open up new franchise locations. So my initial thought going into this, kind of thinking small, was that, hey, I would get this one here in Tuscaloosa going, and then we'd go to the next MLS area over, spend a year or two getting that one going, and then we'd go up north to Huntsville, Alabama, we get one going there. But really, the ultimate goal, and I can attribute a lot of this to a lot of the advice I've gotten from you, is just getting clarity. The ultimate goal for all this to me is to not be the manager of all those locations. And so we've now pivoted, and now we're trying to find, somebody like me who's in those areas who we can partner with and get them to grow, as fast or maybe faster than what we're doing right now. So that would the ultimate goal for me is over the next 10 years is to have 25 of those locations identified and up and going. We've got a few that we are in talks with, and it's looking like probably two of them at least will be kicking off around the first of the year. We've been doing some coaching with them. There's administrative stuff and licensing stuff. And so with that, it's not just Alabama, it's across the country. So what I'm trying to get more intentional about, and I really follow a lot of your stuff and try to rip off and duplicate a little bit of what you're doing with selling your boot camp stuff, is we're trying to become that person to go to for people who were like myself, who are wanting to exit from production. Like that's not to say we couldn't find somebody who already had a brokerage and they're out of production, but really who I'm looking for nationwide as I'm talking to people about starting first class locations. I'm looking at people who have been successful producers, who realize that, hey, I really don't own a business. I kind of own a job. I'm a solopreneur versus an entrepreneur, and helping them get to that next level of stepping out of production and growing a business. They can, maybe within a year or two, can get to the point where it's running without you, and maybe they go out and start a second location. So those are kind of the things that I'm looking at doing. We were talking before we hit record. I don't really see myself ever fully being out of the business. I enjoy coaching people. I enjoy some of the grind. Now, I would like to do it on more of a part-time level, maybe even do that from home at some point. I'm an avid outdoorsman, so we're about to be getting to the time of year where I'm not in the office every day like I normally would be, because I'm crazy about deer hunting, and I just love it. And I've got a 315 acre property about an hour north of where I live, and I'll probably go there almost every day for a few hours in the near future. But it's nice to be able to do that. And I want to help other people get to that point where you're not having to constantly find your next seller and your next buyer. And if you're a team leader or broker owner, the only way you can do that is with growth. You can't do that with 5 agents. You can't do it with 10 agents probably. Or if you can, you're one of the elite few who can. So it really just comes down to, just like when I got back in it as a part-time agent, I just saw that, hey, this is what I'm gonna have to get good at prospecting, lead generation, buyer consultations, listing appointments. And so as a broker owner or team leader, you've got to get good at recruiting. You got to get good at training. And in the beginning, you're going to be doing all those things until you get it to a point where you can start delegating some of that stuff. And so that's really who I'm wanting to try to look and partner with. And when I say partner, that doesn't mean like 50-50 partner. I don't have to have any ownership in it at all. Certainly, I would like to, if they'd like for me to be a 10% owner or 20% owner of their location, but I could go 50-50 with them. But that's ultimately what I'm really wanting to try to get to, is help empower those people who are kind of stuck like I was. If you're working the buyers and sellers every day, even if you're making a great income, you're stuck. You can only go so far with that. And once you stop doing those activities, you don't really have a business anymore. And so those are the kind of people I'm looking for. I'm trying to be that person myself. I'm still not 100% there. So it starts with me. And if we get these 2 locations going at the first year and they become successful, then, just like those sellers that I helped sell their house, those lead to more. And so it's very, very crucial for you to kind of just go through this thing in steps and not try to skip steps as you go. And so I'm in the middle of it right now. I certainly don't have it figured out. I've got great coaches and mentors like yourself and like Ryan and others that I've learned from. And, we're still trying to figure this thing out together. But that's ultimately where I'd like to see myself, 5-10 years down the road, is to have this location here that I started in Northport, Alabama, fully running without me, and then having other locations that I've helped, other people get started.
Yep. Love it, man. Yeah. And the thing I love about First Class, dude, is, it's the first franchise that I've seen that truly gives the franchise owner massive value, right? Not only is it's a plug and play system. So much is provided, the infrastructure, the support, the training, the mentorship, and so forth. But then also it's such I don't know how Ryan figured all this out, but Ryan's one of the most brilliant dudes I've ever met in my life. So if anybody's going to figure it out, it's going to be Ryan, but he figured it out also where it's where everybody wins financially as well. The agents, the franchise owner, even Ryan on the international stage of it, which we haven't seen in this industry. And I truly believe that, he's he's going to take over this industry, and First Class will take it over, man, from the, the franchise component, and with all that being said, man, if those that are watching and listening, dude, if they want to get in touch with you, if they want to have a conversation, whether it's an agent in your marketplace that's looking to have a conversation with you to join First Class where you're at, whether it's an agent listening to this in another market that wants to have a conversation about, the partnership opportunities and wants to, maybe they have a team like a team my size that like, hey, man, maybe it makes sense to go out there and instead of paying my broker all this money to go out there and start my own franchise. Or maybe it's an agent that just have a referral for your market, right, for you as in your agents. Where's the best place, dude, for those that are watching, listening, to get in touch with you at?
Yeah, so, obviously you can shoot an email to me. It's just phil.duke@firstclassagents.com. I'm very active on social media, Facebook and Instagram. I'm sure Josh will put links to that stuff in the comments, on this thing on YouTube. But I'm an easy guy to get in touch with. Just look up Phil Duke Jr., First Class Real Estate Capstone. That's the location that I'm the broker owner of in the Tuscaloosa, Alabama market. And, like real estate agents, we've got our phone numbers and email addresses out everywhere because we want people to get in contact with us. So yeah, just reach out to me. It's not, the First Class model might not be for everybody. We've had a lot of that where, hey, you might be better off staying where you're at, or you might be better off hopping in with EXP because of, whatever kind of arrangement you got going up. So we're not, I'm not personally, just wanting to sell it to people and cram it down their throat just because it would benefit me. It's truly got to be a win-win. And I think that starts at the top up with Ryan. I mean, we could not have gotten to where we are and grown as fast as we are if we would have stayed in independent brokerage. But the tools and the systems, the plug and play transaction coordination, the client care ISA team up there. I mean, we've been able to leverage all that. You only pay for it as you go, and it's been a huge win. And, the admin side of your team or your brokerage will make or break you. And as we've grown, we haven't had to figure out, hey, when do I need to hire another transaction coordinator? When do I need to hire a marketing person? They're already there. They're already on standby. You get charged per the transaction that you utilize that stuff on. If you don't want to use it, you got your own transaction coordinator. You don't get billed for it. So it truly can be a win-win. And even like last week, he called me and was like, hey, you've got a bunch of transactions that you're using our transaction coordinators for. Just want to let you know, how much you're going to be paying us to do that. I'm like, dude, that's one less thing I have to manage. It's one less person in my office that's taking up a seat that could be a producing agent. And I'm happy with the arrangement we have right now, but I appreciate you, looking out for my best interest. He's like, well, at some point it might make financial sense for you to hire your own in-house person to do it. I'm like, well, right now I just want to recruit and grow, and maybe at some point we'll slow down and figure that out. But that's been, one of the biggest things that's allowed us to level up too, is as you're growing your team, you got to figure out when you're going to add that next admin person, whether it's a part-timer or a full-timer. And with that, all I've had to do this year was take my part-time admin and make her full-time. And now, I've hired a recruiter to now start handling some of the recruiting side of things. So it's made my life as a broker owner super easy. And if anybody would like to hear more about that, I'd be glad to walk through the First Class model with them. And it is not salesy and it is not, pushy. That is not my style at all. So if you are a team leader or broker owner that's looking to go to the next level and quit paying a franchise, or or you're having trouble leveling up, hey, let's talk about it. Maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't.
Yep. Love it, man. Powerful stuff, dude. And as Phil mentioned, you guys, if wherever you're at, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, whatever platform you're on, if you scroll below, we'll have all Phil's contact information, all social media links, all of that in the description right below. And Phil, man, I truly appreciate you taking time out of a busy day to be here, dude. This has been a massive honor and a lot of fun, brother.
Well, man, it's been an honor riding with you the last 5 years. And, when I first went through your boot camp program, I just totally didn't even listen to the team stuff and all that kind of stuff. I didn't even want to hear that. But, man, I have soaked up so much of the stuff that you put out. You provide so much value to even the people that don't pay you anything. There's people that watch your YouTube channel and these podcasts. Dude, you're a machine, and I look up to you so much as a business leader. And you've done so much for me and for my family and for our agents here, even though you don't realize it. And so it's truly an honor to come on here and give back, because you've given so much to me and to my family over the last 5 years. So.
Yeah, man, means a lot, brother. And those watching and listening, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all your support. Keep crushing it. Keep kicking ass. And we will see you next time. Peace. I hope you enjoyed this GSD Mode podcast episode. Now make sure you get shit done and smash that subscribe button now.